Hello and welcome, and thank you for joining us today. I'm your host, Brother T, today here at True Thought Spiritual Community. So grateful that you've decided to join us today for an inspirational message. The title of our message today is Live from Love. And before we begin, I'm going to ask you to just join me for a brief moment of silence as we connect together. Let's take a good deep breath. Thank you, Mother, Father, God. Thank you, Infinite Spirit. Thank you, Universal Consciousness, for coming in and joining us here in this conversation today. We are blessed because we are living from love in this very moment. We are blessed because we're joined as community. We are blessed because we have a language that informs us in mind and heart to see the world in a new way. And we are so very grateful for the love that we were created from, and so it is. Well, God bless you. And again, thank you for joining us again today. My name is Brother T, and I am a co-founder of True Thought Spiritual Community along with my wife, Rev Renee, and we are both seriously very blessed because of your presence in our community and that you're taking a few moments out of your time to watch this video today. So again, thank you so much for joining us. Today, the title is Live from Love, and I'd like to begin by recalling a situation. I was working with my wife in ministry, in the ministry that's considered to be True Thought spiritual communities that have evolved over the last 100 years or so. And we were working in the community, and there was a lady there that she had been in the community for a while, and she was bound to a wheelchair. I never saw her walking. She had a motorized wheelchair, but she would, she could get around pretty good. And she would come to, not frequently, but she would certainly come to some of our classwork, and she would come to our, Sunday services on occasion as well. And she received a prognosis, if you will, that her life was coming to an end. Her disease, whatever had crippled her or whatever was going on with her body, had progressed, and she'd basically been told, you don't have much longer to live. And so she came to me, and in a moment, just in the hallway outside the sanctuary one Sunday morning, and she just came to me, pulled up to me, and she said, she told me about her situation, and she said, I'm really concerned. She said, because she said, and she was almost in tears, she said, because I don't know what the meaning of my life is. I mean, I'm being told that my life is about to be over, and I don't know how to I don't know what my life was about. I don't know what was my purpose, what was my life. And at that point, in that moment, because I was caught unaware of the question and hadn't considered it in a deep way at that point in my life. I was still, I want to say young, certainly younger than I am now in my spiritual growth and my spiritual understanding. And I was caught off guard a little bit, and so I can't remember exactly what I told her, but I tried to comfort her as best I could. She passed away not too long after that, and I never saw her again. Later, actually just about a year or so ago, maybe 2 years ago now, another person that was closer to me, I had a more of a relationship with him, and he was a man who I didn't think he was extremely elderly, but he had just made up his mind, and he had gotten a prognosis that, he had an illness or whatever it was, and he was basically in the hospital, and he had decided, I think, and said so, that he was ready to go. He didn't really want to stick around in this experience much longer. But anyway, I went to visit him, and we had a few moments together, and he asked me the same question. But I was more prepared that time because I had done some work to answer that question, to try to understand it, to do some study, and to try to ask the question from within and to be guided by Spirit. And it's almost like it came automatically for me. My response to him was quite simple. Your purpose in life is the people that you've loved. It's the relationships that you've had And the way that you have blessed people in your life with your gifts, and he was a musician, and he loved to play the banjo, and he had been an amazing blessing to his wife at that point. They had joined each other later in life, and just were a hoot to be around, and were a lot of fun to be around. And they really complimented each other and had a lot of fun and laughter together. And I could see the people that he'd touched. In fact, after his passing, there was a memorial service, and we had more people in our sanctuary. And it was wall to wall. I mean, and people standing around. That we had more people and seating for more people. I think that was the largest audience that we'd ever seen in our sanctuary for people that came to memorialize him. But I was sitting there with him in his hospital room, him laying in his hospital bed, and literally just a few days away, he was still very conscious, and it didn't seem to me like he was ready to pass away, though I think he was determined at that point. He wanted to move on. But he said, or I said to him that, that your life has been an amazing miracle for all the people in your life that you've touched. You've lived from love. You've blessed people and given them your gifts of entertainment and laughter and held them in your heart. And he had been a guidance to a lot of people because he was involved in the 12-step program, and he'd helped a lot of people by being, their I don't know the language to use properly, but basically he took them under his wing, and he shared his story of sobriety, and he had helped countless people to be free from their fear of addiction. He'd helped countless people to change the course of their lives. Yet at this moment, he was still pondering himself, have I been, has my life been worthwhile? What has my purpose been? And living from love, as I understand it and know it now, that is our purpose. That is all. That's why we all came here, to live a life from love, because in order to do that, we have to connect with that part of us that is the self of love. And I'll say capital S self. The capital S self of love is what we came to connect with. And when we do connect with that self, then we express as that self, and we be that self. We become the being of love. And love is healing. Love embraces. Love helps us to see all the trials and tribulations that we decide mutually agreed upon definitions, and we decide as well in not just in our society, but in our own thinking, the condition that's been handed down to us, that the things that we decide are good and the things that we decide are bad, and all the judgments that we have been given, and it seems to be what everybody agrees upon, that a diagnosis of death is a bad thing, right? Or that a wish to leave this planet is a bad thing because it seems like it's an end of life, but it is absolutely impossible, because what we are in truth is an idea in the mind of love. We are an extension of that idea, and we continue to know love by the being of love. We continue to know God, if you will, if you want to use that term, or universal consciousness, whatever name you want to give love is fine, as long as you recognize that it's the source of your identity, capital I identity. And it was given to me a few years ago, by a master who simply said, you and God are one. And when you let that be, you get your identity back. And he said, write that down on a sticky note or, something and put it on your refrigerator. And I did that. And every day for a long time, I want to say for years, but for a long time, every time I'd walk by my refrigerator or reach to open the refrigerator door, I would see that simple, that's an axiom. That is a confirmation of the truth of who and what we are. When you literally begin to realize what you are, who you are. I almost titled the message today, with a question mark, like, who am I? And we, of course, have our historical references and our traditional theology has taught us these references of this being called Christ or Jesus Christ, and that one was much different than us. That was God being, in coming to earth in form. But Jesus was different than we are, or at least that was what was intended in the message, and that we would worship Jesus as God, and that we were being given a gift, and that we could not be that we were not worthy of that we were born in sin, and that we must be afraid of this self. But I can't imagine anybody being afraid of Jesus. How about you, right? He was the example life, if you want to call it that, of living from love. He was certainly not anything that anybody would point to and say, you better fear Jesus. You better fear what he was as this life of love. That's absurd, right? I can't even, even from my conditioning of that understanding that was given to me as a young man, right? When I first became baptized, I think I was around the age of 12. And, all those experiences of trying to relate to this being, this man, this God man called Jesus. Well, his purpose seemed to be quite clear. That was told to me, his purpose was to come and to die for our sins. Because again, that was the validation that we weren't worthy of even his love, right? Because we were inferior creations of God. Well, if God's perfect, when we start putting a little reason to the logic of those types of arguments, it's absurd. If God is perfect, God wouldn't create imperfect, and therefore you and I were created perfect. We are ideas of love, of perfect love in the mind of God. And the only way to really begin to know that truth is the being of love in life. By allowing ourselves to be this expression. And the axiom, the true thought principle that I want to share with you today is something that's been ringing for me these last couple of weeks. As we've seen all the calamity going on around us, it appears to be, in our political system here in the Western culture, this first month of January, we're barely not 2 weeks into it yet. We've seen riots, we've seen disruption of governance, we've seen a constitutional crisis, we've seen calamity going on, and certainly people are still, discovering, COVID-19 and these diagnoses of impending death and sickness. And we've seen all of these things. And so we can be caught up in fear because this false evidence appearing real is that there is tremendous potential, if not already an existing experience of loss. But if God is perfect and you're a creation of God, if all that we experience is a creation of perfection, how could there be loss? And the axiom I want to share with you today is very simple, but again, I want to suggest that we write it down on a sticky note and put it somewhere where we travel to often, maybe on our refrigerator. It's simple, but I'll share it with you. There is no loss. There is only gain. It's impossible for loss to truly be real. So fear, false evidence appearing real, is manifesting outward, picturing the fear we hold, the vibration we hold, and we've discussed this several times, and we're going to keep talking about it because the truth is quite simple at the end of the day, that you're perfect, neither behind the point of perfection nor advancing toward it, and you must see yourself therefrom. And the easiest way to see ourselves from that position of that positionality, from that definition, from that truth about who we are, what we are, is to begin to see it in our brothers and sisters. And it's so easy to see it sometimes in some of the beings around us, like a newborn baby. We look at this newborn baby and it's just perfect. It's just this perfect expression of love. And it reflects and echoes back and reverberates the love that it receives from its parents, if its parents are conscious enough to be loving. If its parents are living from love, this child can only exist from love. So we see that with our pets that live with us in our homes. And I hope, if you're partnered, that you're experiencing that as well from who's living their life with you in your home. And if you're not partnered at this moment, that's okay. It's perfectly okay, because I have a brother that's been partnered several times, and I kid him all the time about it. He's been married several times, and I like playing with him about that, and give him a little hard time. But he's experienced lots of love with different relationships, and truthfully, so have you, and so have I. We can live a life from love, but we can only live a life from love when we be love, when we are the first receiver and express it. Regardless of what's going on out here, we are charged and have a purpose here, a meaning to be here, to be the expression of love, to be living from love. When we look upon our world, it's not the time to judge it, and it's not the time to fear loss. No matter what the prognosis, no matter what the event, no matter what the calamity, no matter what the pundits and the media or anybody else might say from the voice of loss and say, oh my God, what are we going to do? Everything's falling apart, et cetera, et cetera. The new can only come at the cost of the old. And I personally believe with all my heart that we are beginning to move into a time where we all will live from love, from a much higher level of consciousness. And it begins with me and you. It begins with each of us doing our part. Doing our part. So I hope I'm doing my part today. And what I'm feeling is just love. It's everywhere. Last week, Reverend Renee and I were talking about removing the obstacles to the awareness of the presence of David in the stone, that was being carved away. Removing the obstacles to the awareness of the presence of the life that can be lived from love. That's our purpose. That's why we came. And I feel this truth, and I know this truth. And I also know that we chose to come here to live this way. We chose to come here to be this energy, this love, and to comfort our brothers and sisters, and to help them to remember there is no loss. There is only gain. So we withhold judgment about what appearances are, and we go back to the center and we connect with the heart, because the heart of God is within us. And we connect with that voice, and we ask, what's the truth? And we allow that truth then to be our truth. We allow that knowing to be our purpose. We allow the truth to be the meaning that we paint the world with. There is no loss. There is only gain. And we are here to stand as witness, as that is our truth, because we only have to withdraw the idea of loss to see that love is true. Love is real. That love is our source. And in love, there is only gain. And so it is. God bless you. I love you. Thank you for being here. We love you.